Welcome to another episode of Divine Energetic Coding in the Bible. In this one, we're going to talk about how I came to believe that Paul's scripture was coded, what evidence I found in the energetic process of making that determination. Now, when our guides are guiding us to expand in our conscious awareness into an area that we've not consciously conceived before, they will do that a lot of times through a nudge and a question. So, for example, maybe you've been brought up to believe that Paul's scripture is literally inerrant, even though some of it makes you feel deeply uncomfortable. And so you just shut down those feelings, or you might recognize and honor that it makes you feel deeply uncomfortable and have formed opinions as to why that is, and that therefore we shouldn't listen to him at all. Sort of that black or white thinking keeps you from potentially getting a deeper answer either about the messages themselves or just about yourself. So it's important once you become in higher conscious awareness not to jump to polarity in your thinking, and instead give your guides a chance to guide you through it. And so let's just say it starts with a question that you're like, okay, I'm not going to throw them out, but why is some of Paul's scripture? Why does it seem sometimes problematic or conflicting with what Yeshua taught? And also, by the way, with some of Paul's other scripture, does that mean we should summarily ignore it? Like, ask your guides and start to feel for that, because they're not reactive like humans are. And those are the questions we should be asking. Part of the energetic purpose of that dissonance being there is for us to ask so that we can be guided to something deeper. And it's also why it's feeling dissonant to you right now, meaning not in alignment with what your soul knows to be true in spirit in some way. Now, what that is going to be for you is going to be dependent on your soul journey and what your guides are trying to show you. But we can just open up that we're willing to be guided into higher truths. We don't want to be guided into more stuff that's not truth, that is going to feel wrong in our soul. But we want to be guided to higher truth that's going to feel resonant. And also, by the way, always for our good. Because when you get into higher consciousness and higher truth, it's always for the good. That's the nature of the system. So if you're getting the question, that's beautiful. And it's also probably because you're ready for it right now. That's why this is coming to you. That's the way it works. We're not ready till we are ready. So if you're ready and meant to hear it, I'm going to say that I firmly trust, because trust is an energetic choice that I'm making based on all of the evidence that we're going to talk about, that Paul was talking an energetic code and that he was divinely guided to do so masterfully, so that his messages contain multiple meanings that are so complex that they're confounding us 2,000 years later. That is, they confound us until we have the energetic key. Before we dive in, as always, you have the sovereign right to stop this exploration anytime you don't feel safe, because Paul's words have really been weaponized. And if it doesn't feel resonant to you in your soul, in fact, I encourage it. At the same time, try to avoid an all or nothing measure, as I said. And if you hear something that triggers your resistance, but you still feel safe and a compulsion to continue, it may be because you're meant to see something that will help you expand through your resistance into something that is more resonant. Whether it's by agreeing with me or not is completely irrelevant, because your journey is about you and you alone. But if everything in you right now is telling you to step away, honor that. Even if it is coming purely from your nervous system and subconscious egoic programming, because it is still important to honor your body without a doubt. But then I do suggest, though, afterwards, when you have a little distance and you feel calm, looking at what came up for you, if you feel safe, and calling on any appropriate professional help and support if you need it. Because our resistance and our autonomic reactions are important information for us always. Now, let's talk about the evidence that Paul was often talking in code. First of all, in Acts, the Pharisees were constantly petitioning the Roman courts to imprison Paul, often successfully, and even to execute him. In Acts chapter 4, he's brought again to Roman court, where the Pharisees are trying to have him killed, though he is Jewish, and therefore the Roman courts have already previously ruled that he's subject to Jewish law interpretation, and if applicable, whatever their punishment they decide. But it's on the church that he's not following Jewish law. So Paul has to plead his innocence to that very specific charge by convincing them he did follow and believe in Jewish law. Now, he received divine guidance about what to say several times, that he mentions that, just like I do. In this case, the way he answers that is he says, I trust in the way, which is a code also, and at the same time believes everything that is in accordance with the law. And while he didn't mean it the way the Pharisees would have required him to mean it had they truly been able to understand or prove his true meaning, he was telling the truth. He says in Romans that to the extent the old law leads to righteousness, there's no issue with it. But that any, quote, new law, symbolically, that comes from being in the way, must come through the energy of trust, which I've already said is based on you and is moment by moment. And that's an energetic code word. It's completely subjective, by the way. So that means you can't have like standardized laws in spirit. And that means it has to be applied or not applied, person by person, according to individual soul resonance in spirit, according to their soul journey. Because under the divine energetic design, trust energy must be a personal energetic experience that is measured and confirmed through deep inner soul resonance. He also infers that, quote, new law is one made to depend on faith, which is another energetic code, meaning the threshold energy between lower consciousness or the egoic realm and higher consciousness that we cover in other videos in the series. What he's saying is that it means you exit the need for objective law when you exit lower consciousness and move through the faith energetic threshold into spirit. Because there, everything is for you by divine design, and you also know it is. So objective law no longer has any meaning or purpose for you in those frequencies because the divine energetic design is sufficient to move all who can and choose to sustain these higher energetic frequencies in spirit towards the good. Yep, that's another code word. I talk about this in some other videos, including a message I had gotten from Moses when I was in Greece last year, which was amazing and unexpected, where he talks about that the law is for little children, immature, unawakened souls. He used the description of if you take a 2-year-old to the lake for the first time, they don't know how to swim, they don't know how to assess the water, dangers, and where it's safe, and they don't have any tools. And so you tell them to stay away from the water. It's like a blanket statement. But once they grow, they need to learn how to swim. They need to learn how to assess the water. Yeshua, by the way, is referring to a similar concept when he says, in spirit, there is no sin. Now, because of the external resistance from the Pharisees and the risks to Paul both personally and to his ministry, Paul and his trained sub-disciples taught something they coded as the way. This was the energetic path of spiritual awakening towards Christ consciousness. But they only taught the particulars to people they met with privately. Yeshua did the same thing, by the way. His apostles asked him, Teacher, Rabbi, why aren't you telling all the people the things that you tell us privately?